Open a cabinet. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make these nifty shelves and add them to your cabinets. A typical overhead RV cabinet is cavernous. It's extremely tall, it's wide, and it's deep. It's hard to maximize that space though. A box of cereal is tall, but a can of soup is short. And so you end up with tons of stuff in the bottom of it and not much stuff in the top. So how do you maximize that? Well, I got these little stands that they almost double the space. And you can see here that I also added some of these, they call them flex trays. And they're almost the perfect depth. If they were a little bit longer, they'd be better. But you can see some problems here. And the number one problem is this whole tipping thing that's going on. The stands are a bit smaller than the cabinet. And so during travel, there can be shifting. The first thing you're going to want to do is measure the depth of your cabinet. Now, my cabinets vary in depth. Up at the top, they're much deeper than down at the bottom, but I want my shelf to be about here, and I found that about 14.5 inches is just about the perfect depth. You also want to measure the width of the cabinet. And as I was measuring widths of my cabinets here, every cabinet was a slightly different width. This one is almost exactly 18 inches. You're going to want to cut boards to size. I bought, this is called maple plywood. I bought this at Lowe's. I'll put a link down in the description. There's also birch plywood. You want to use a really high quality plywood so that it matches the interior of your RV, or it comes close to matching the interior. Cut your boards to size and then verify that they fit inside the cabinet that you want them to fit in. These stands are exactly the height that I want to put my shelves at, so I just put the stand in upside down, and then my shelf goes in. And now I know where that shelf is going to be, so I can start working on the mounting hardware. If you don't have a wire rack like that, find a cardboard box that's about the right height, and then your shelves will go in nice and level. I used two small pieces of plywood in my clamp to protect my piece of maple when I go to sand it and clean up this edge. The next step is to sand each edge of the plywood. You want to make sure that the edges feel smooth so that you don't get splinters or stuff doesn't get stuck on the edges, and round off the corners just a little bit. Clean off the sawdust so that you have a nice clean edge for attaching your melamine strip. So this stuff is called veneer edging, and you can get it in several colors. I'll put a link to the stuff I bought in the description. Anyway, we want to it conceals the edge of the plywood, so you don't see the plywood edge all the time. And I want to just cut it to size, so I'm going to trim about another inch or so off of this. I'm just using a razor blade to cut it down a little bit. And now it's about the right length. And this goes on really easy. All you do is use an iron set to the cotton setting, and I'm going to start on the right and move towards the left, and it just irons right on. You got to make sure it gets hot enough. So you need to let this strip cool before you work on it, and the first thing I want to do is cut the ends off as close to the corner as I can get, both sides. So there's our ends, and now I want to cut these edges off, and I bought this tool again at Lowe's. I'll put a link in the comments for it, but all you do is make sure it's flush with the side and just push it along, and it cuts off the excess. Same thing on the other side. Flip the tool around and down we go. The last step is just to sand off the edge of that veneer so that it won't ever catch on anything that might peel it off. If the veneer ever does peel off, you just take an iron and iron it again. It's pretty easy stuff to work with. And now we're ready to install these in the camper. So I bought 2 different size L brackets for installing these shelves. The double one is going to be installed at the front of the shelf. That's where all the action is, and that's where that shelf might experience upward and downward forces. So I'm going to install that at the front of the shelf, and then in the back of the shelf I'm going to install the single. Now I need to locate the L bracket, and I want to make sure it's hitting plenty of wood here. And I'm just going to mark it on my shelf where it's going. I'm not going to mark it on the vertical yet. So I should have 2, yep, I have 2 good holes there. And for the back one, I do the same thing. I'm just gonna mark it on my shelf. Make sure my shelf is all the way back. Should have done that first. And now I'm gonna mark that hole. And so I should have 2 nice mounting points here that we can see. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. The screws that came with the L brackets are a little bit too long, so I'm going to have to shave them down. I've mounted a rotary tool in my vise, and I'm just going to put the screw on the rotary tool. Make sure you wear safety glasses for this, but I'm just going to sand off that pointy tip. I don't want to drill my holes too deep, so I made this drill stop out of some wire that I had. I just wrapped it around the drill bit. Once I've got the L brackets on, I can put the shelf in, and I've got it on top of my my shelf rack, and now I can mark where I need to drill the holes in. Well, welcome to the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you have some ideas or something that I missed. Please leave it down in the comments. If you have a chance, please subscribe and like. By subscribing, that gives me feedback so that I know you're enjoying my content.